All right, let's talk about Canada. Oh, go ahead.
I'll do. Sure. Canada's snap election was called over the weekend, and the Liberal Party leaders are banking on a win based solely on fear of American colonialism. So they're trying to sell this. You better, stick with the leaders or else Trump is your daddy. David Krayden, Canadian journalist, joins us today to discuss how this came about. What is the fear-mongering happening right now? David, good to see you. Do I have it right? Is it just the anti-American sentiment that you think is going to give Trudeau's party the win?
Well, I've been saying for 3 months that the Liberals, under whomever, whether Trudeau had stayed or whether it's Mark Carney, they want to run against Donald Trump. That has been their trump card, no pun intended. But that's been the strategy. Demonize Donald Trump. And unfortunately, Donald Trump has played right into their hands. In fact, he endorsed Mark Carney just last week. And very, very, very disturbing. But here we have an unelected globalist who's seeking a popular mandate to implement a radical environmental program that's out of sync with our neighbor to the south, the United States, and the world's most powerful nation. There's a element here, a huge element of delusion from Mark Carney to think he can pull this off somehow. This is a man, by the way, who has advocated that the Chinese yuan replace the US dollar as the world currency. He said that at a speech in Jackson Hole, Wyoming in 2019. He repeated it just last year. And by the way, if anyone has video of that speech, we'd love to have it. And because all we have is the notes from a speech where Carney also advocates for digital currency, a World Bank controlling currencies around the world. This is a dangerous globalist who has moved to the center for this election. And of course, that's another reason he's apparently, and I say apparently, doing so well, because the latest poll I saw this morning from Angus Reid has the Liberals at 46% to the Conservatives 38%. You have to remember, just in January, the Liberals had 26% support. So somehow they have gone up 20 percentage points in the last 3 months. And apparently it's all because of Mark Carney. And I find that hard to believe because as I tell people, what do you find appealing about Mark Carney? Even if you like his policies, he has the personality of a reptile. He's a completely unengaging individual. He looks like he's never had an average day in his life. He went directly from Harvard to Oxford, into the world, and into the governor of the Bank of Canada, governor of the Bank of England. He's been a globalist his entire life. And it's funny, when he meets ordinary working people, they don't even want to look at him. They eschew his handshake. He literally forced 50 fishermen in Newfoundland just yesterday morning, or I think it was Sunday night, so they could not enter the room where he was speaking. All they wanted to do was to speak to either him or the fisheries minister, who was also present. Mark Carney said, no, I'm not meeting with these people. And that's indicative of how elitist and how out of touch this man is. I don't believe the polls right now. I don't believe, I think it's the Kamala Harris effect, because like Kamala Harris, you look at this man's rallies and Pierre Poilievre's got twice as many people there. And it's mystifying to anybody who thinks Canada has an ounce of common sense left to think that this man could be doing as well as he's purported to do in the polls.
I saw someone in the chat say that the World Economic Forum placed him there, put him in Canada. I mean, they certainly did with Justin Trudeau. So the globalists, of course, this is their guy, I believe. They want him there. They want him in place in Canada. You tweeted this yesterday, which is about the growth, or a few hours ago, the growth in Canada right now. Canada has not had growth for 10 years due to overtaxation, too much regulations. And is he offering anything different than what his Liberal Party has offered for the past 10 years in Canada that's driven Canada into the toilet?
Or do voters think that there's something different? Those are two questions, but related.
He's offered a 1% tax cut for middle class people, whereas Poilievre is offering 15%. So I don't think the 1% is going over well. He's talking now that he's not really against pipelines, even though for the last 10 years, his advice to the Trudeau government, he was an insider in the Trudeau government as a chief advisor to Justin Trudeau. He wanted every pipeline stopped. He wanted fossil fuels to disappear. He wanted the Alberta energy industry to die. And he was advocating net zero. Now, he still is advocating net zero, but he'll say, oh, we can't destroy fossil fuels overnight. And I'm not really that against pipelines. But the next day, he'll reiterate the other Mark Carney, which is the Mark Carney of the Trudeau years, where he'll say, yes, we have to adhere to the net zero policies. We have to get rid of fossil fuels. And there'll be a carbon tax, but it won't be on individuals, but on corporations. And it'll actually make it into a tariff, which, of course, will drive a lot of corporations out of this country. We're looking at an economic catastrophe. We're already on the precipice of a depression in this country. Many would say we are in a recession already. Mark Carney would push us into a depression. And I recently spoke to Liz Truss, former Prime Minister of Great Britain, who knew Mark Carney very well. And she said, you're inviting an economic disaster if you have this man as your Prime Minister. He destroyed the British economy as the governor of the Bank of England to the point where it has never ever recovered. And there are people saying today that the Bank of England, of course, is on the brink of sinking into an abyss it will never come out of. So is he convincing Canadians? To some degree. But we've had an actor now for 10 years. Or we had an actor as Prime Minister for 10 years. His name was Justin Trudeau. He was a failed actor who went into politics because nothing else really worked out for him. Mark Carney is a man who pretends to be an outsider, pretends to really have never had interest in politics. And this is a man who decided at the age of 60 he's going to be Prime Minister. But as your viewer pointed out, has he been installed by the World Economic Forum? You bet. He has spent the last 5 years as a UN Goodwill Ambassador for climate change. And is he here to implement a radical environmental policy? Of course he is. And he will talk for the next 5 weeks in a more moderate fashion. Like he's really not as left-wing, really not as radical as he's being made out to be. Just read his books, though. He says his two greatest inspirational leaders were Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin. Now, anybody who put that
say
in print,
no more. Yes.
That's great.
Wow.
David Krayden, great to see you. We will be watching with this snap election as it unfolds. And, a lot of people in the chat saying, yeah, I mean, this sin over the past few years, the slashing of productivity, trying to keep people home, and really the amount of regulations and taxes in Canada has been absolutely devastating. David, great to see you. Thank you so much as always, and we'll be watching this.
Well, if I can just add, Clayton, before I go, I've got one of these fishermen on my show tomorrow morning to talk about their experience with Mark Carney in Newfoundland the other day. They are madder than hell, and I hope and pray we see that madder than hell attitude go right across this nation from coast to coast to coast.
Well, I would love to see that. I mean, imagine Donald Trump like not talking to a group of fishermen because he's like above it or something, and he can't relate to the man of the people. Like, I just couldn't picture it happening. So we'll be watching that. David, thank you so much. We'll be watching your show tomorrow. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Clayton and Natalie.
Thank you, David.